Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chrissy, and I would like to welcome you to the Doylestown Bookshop's virtual event series. We are so happy to welcome young adult author Erica George as she discusses her newest book, which came out today, where it's composed of Sea and Sky with French author Anne-Sophie Jouhanneau. Our guests will be in conversation for about 30 minutes. After that, they will take questions from you, the viewers. If you would like to submit a question, please click on Ask a Question on your screen and enter your question there. If you're on a phone or tablet, click the icon with the question mark to submit your questions. If you would like to purchase the author's books from the Doylestown or Lahaska bookshops, click the button on your screen that says Buy the Books. We have curbside pickup available at both of our locations, and we ship worldwide. We still have signed copies of Erica's book available, and Anne-Sophie will be sending us signed book plates if you would like a signed copy. Please note that you would like a signed copy in the order comments section at checkout when you order online. I've had a few questions from viewers who are used to Zoom events, so to avoid any confusion, only the authors and I will have access to video and audio. You can, however, interact with us through the live chat and during the Q&A. Now, a little bit about our guests. Erica George is a writer of young adult fiction. She is a graduate of the College of New Jersey with degrees in both English and education, and is currently an MFA student at Vermont College of Fine Arts. She resides in northern New Jersey but spends her summers soaking up the salty sea air on Cape Cod. That sounds amazing.
It is.
French author Anne-Sophie Jouhanneau books have been translated into 7 languages. Kissing and Croissants is her English language debut. She lives in New York City with her Australian husband. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. I'm so excited for this event tonight.
Thank you so much.
Very excited as well.
Yeah,
thank you for having us. Very
problem.
exciting.
I'm going to turn it over to you. We're looking forward to hearing about Erica, your new book, and then I'll come back for the Q&A.
That's great. Thank you. Hey.
Hi, Anso.
Hi, Erica. Long time no see.
4 o'clock.
I know, it's been so long. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here with you tonight and to celebrate this beautiful book, where it's composed of sea and sky. Congratulations to Erica. Well, first question is, how are you feeling? This is your big debut. You're published author today, which is very exciting. So how do you feel?
It's been a day. I was telling you before that I taught all day and I didn't have any signal in my classroom. So all of the notifications and well-wishing kind of all came at me at about 3 o'clock when I got in my car. So that was very nice and also very overwhelming at the same time.
That's some car ride.
Yeah.
And I'd love to, well, I guess to kick things off, I'd love to hear in your own words what this lovely book is about. And then I think you prepared a reading for us, which I can't wait to listen to. So tell us what this is about.
So Words Composed of Sea and Sky tells the story of 2 poets. First is Michaela, who lives in present day, and she very much wants to go to a poetry workshop that her stepfather doesn't want to fund. So she enters a poetry contest where she has to write a poem about her town's local legend, whaling Captain Benjamin Churchill, who died at sea over 100 years ago. And when she comes across a journal of a girl named Leta Townsend who lived in 1862, she realizes that Leta actually wrote poetry under Benjamin Churchill's name. And in 1862, Leta thinks that Benjamin Churchill is dead, which is why she takes his name and she decides to write poems because it's difficult for women to get published in this time period. And then he comes back and she falls for him pretty quickly, but she just isn't sure if it's really him or the boy that she's made up in her imagination.
Amazing. So which part of the book are you going to read from?
I'm going to read from chapter 2, which is actually in Michaela's point of view. So it's present day. And she is kind of still seething over the fact that her stepfather is not going to give her the money to go to this poetry workshop. So she goes down to Cape Cod Bay and she decides she's going to write a poem about oysters. And she specifically watches someone who is fishing for oysters. When I look up from my writing, the boy is significantly closer than he was before, bending over the shallow ripple of a wave. You sketching me, he asks, without looking up. Kind of, I reply. I'm writing a poem about you. And oysters. He finds one, lifts it from the bay, and drops it into his basket. Oh yeah? I didn't think oysters were worth writing a poem about. I close my journal, my pen marking the page. Everything's worth writing a poem about. He moves deeper into a tide pool. Do you come down here just to write? His back is to me and his voice is carried away by the breeze, but I still manage to catch what he says. I usually write at home, I reply, wrapping my arms around my knees, but I had to get out of there today. Everything okay, he asks. With what? At home. He stands up straight, and I think he's turned toward me because I can hear him better, but it's hard to tell in this light. I rest my chin on top of my knees and sigh. Do you ever get so frustrated by a person's inability to understand what you want? Like, you think you're saying something clear and obvious, and yet the person is so completely dense that they miss it? Sometimes, he replies. Like when you really want tacos for dinner, but instead it's leftover dried out spaghetti. I lift my chin and breathe in sharply through my nose. Sort of, I think. Like who wants leftovers when you could have tacos? He bends down again, plucking an oyster from the sand. It's a little more complicated than that, I murmur. My stepdad and I don't get along. Ah, he says, that sucks. He honestly believes that he treats me and my half-sister the same, but it's not true. I don't even think I can blame him. Melly is his. I'm some other man's daughter. Did you tell your mom how you feel, he asks. No, I say glumly. What about your real dad? He's dead, I reply. The oyster fisherman stands up straight, one of his broad shoulders tilting downward, and he shifts the basket from one arm to the other. I'm really sorry. That was shitty of me to ask. You didn't know. He plods toward me, the gentle splish-splash of the tide pool relaxing my whole body as the water parts with each of his steps. When he's only a few feet away, I look up, his prominent jawbone and deep-set brown eyes clear now with the dipping angle of the sun. I just unloaded my family issues to Phineas Pierce. Phineas Pierce, the star pitcher of our unbeatable school baseball team, the Highland Whalers. Phineas Pierce, who throws an 83-mile-per-hour fastball. Phineas Pierce, over whom every single girl I know fantasizes. Phineas Pierce, Russ's nephew Ryan's best friend, until death do they part, that Phineas Pierce. I groan. He plops down beside me, lifting his knees and resting his elbows on top. I shouldn't have said anything, I say quietly, trying to shift my journal off of my lap and into the sand on the other side of me. No, it's cool, he says. I mean, I'm glad I was here to talk. Well, this evening has gone down an unwieldy path. It's one of those moments where I'm not sure if I should go on pretending like we actually know one another, or if I should introduce myself, because why would Phineas Pierce actually know who I am? Michaela Dunn, writer of Poetry by the Bay. Even Ryan, my pseudo-cousin, hardly acknowledges me, which is a daily blessing. I'm Michaela, by the way, I finally force myself to say, but the tail end of my words fades into the breeze. Yeah, I know, he says. Mac, you're Ryan's cousin. He pauses. Well, his uncle's. Yeah, I'm Russ's stepdaughter, I finish. He leans back a little, a grin taking hold of his mouth, and extends his right hand. Finn Pierce. I laugh, taking his hand and letting him vigorously shake mine. I know who you are, Finn. Yeah, we had world history together sophomore year. I did not, in fact, remember that. You sat diagonally in front of me. Asked me for an eraser cap once. An oddly specific detail to remember, but I keep him from feeling awkward. But to keep him from feeling awkward, I smile down at my toes, curling them into the damp sand, like I totally remember this scene. You don't remember, he realizes. I purse my lips together and shrug apologetically. The eraser was hot pink, and you told me that you liked a guy who wasn't dictated by stereotypical gender norms. Nodding, I pull my hair over my shoulder and twist it loosely between my fingers. Sounds like something I would say. He stares out at the bay. I won't tell Ryan what you said, if that's what you're worried about. I exhale through my nose, my shoulders relaxing. It's not his business, I get it. Thank you, I say softly. We sit silently for a little while, and soon the sun dips behind the edge of the bay, a spit of orange puncturing the sky before it disappears for the night.
How lovely. My first question, I think, about this book would be, I guess the start. Where did it come from? Where did the idea? How did you get it come from? How did you get inspired?
It started in 8th grade, actually. So I had actually, Benjamin Churchill, who's a character in 1862, is a character that came to me one night when I was in 8th grade. I had just seen a production of A Christmas Carol at McCarter Theater in Princeton, New Jersey. And I was just kind of thinking about change and the things that the things that change us and the things that keep us the same and why we do one or the other. And he just kind of appeared, and I started to journal about him. So he's been with me since I was about 13. And then he just kind of inserted himself into the story when I sat down to write about just two girls who loved poetry and were divided by centuries, and how the issues that one faces in the modern day are still similar issues that the other faced in the 1860s. And some of those things just haven't gone away.
Yeah, that's very true. That's one of the things I really liked about the book, is how both girls' stories really mirror and how things change and things stay the same. Let's talk about this gorgeous, gorgeous cover. I love, like, the sky is such a mood. And I was wondering, did you participate at all in the design of the cover? Like, how was the process gone with your editor, with your team in general?
I had I actually had more input than I anticipated having. Like, I don't know. I guess in my head, I thought that a cover was going to be presented to me and I could say, like, yeah, I love it, or no, I really don't like it. But I did have a lot to say. So the first cover, some images that I saw were a little like a little stormier looking, a little drearier looking. And the lighthouse that was in the picture was actually a lighthouse from Maine. And so it was really important to me that because the lighthouse in the story is Highland Light, which is a real lighthouse on Cape Cod. And even though we didn't get Highland Light on the cover, that wasn't possible, we did get Novska Light, which is also a lighthouse on Cape Cod. And I was just really lucky. My designer was Frances J. Su Ping Chow, and she just did such a beautiful job. I'm just really thrilled with it. So
it's beautiful. The color scheme is really, really gorgeous. I was wondering if there were, like, any other, as you and I both know, writing is a very solitary enterprise. And I was just wondering if you had anything you wanted to say about your team, whether it's your editor, your publicist, and how that collaboration has worked, I guess.
Yeah, my editor is Julie Matisic of Running Press Kids, and she was just amazing. She helped me to. You have a story in your head, and sometimes it's in your head for so long. And like you were just saying, it's such a solitary job being a writer that you very soon can't get out of your own head. So when she sent me my edit letter, she asked me such good questions just about how to turn this into the story that it is today. And I'm really grateful, because not only did she help me to make this such a beautiful story, I learned a lot about writing. You can always learn something about writing, no matter how many books you've written. So
that's very, very true. Every day. I like the scene you read a lot, because there's that sort of feminist undertone to it, right? Like he's talking about the pink eraser, and she's like, yeah, that's about the gender stereotype, and even though she doesn't remember, she's totally like, yeah, this is me.
Clearly, we had this conversation.
Exactly. Okay, he's remembering correctly. And yes, and obviously in the past storyline, Leta is writing under a man's name because she feels like this is the only way she can publish. So I was kind of curious about how you went about, like, building those two female characters, those two strong feminist female characters.
I wish that I had, like, a really cookie cutter answer for that, but their stories just kind of told themselves almost. And, I think that there's a lot of tension in the idea that this girl thinks that Benjamin Churchill is dead. So she takes his name, and then he comes back, and and then not only have I taken your name, but you're also kind of cute. So now what do I do? And how angry are you going to be when you find out that I've been lying this entire time? So yeah, and I think that there's a lot to be said about claiming your voice and claiming your words, right? And I think that that's something not just that women struggled with in the past. I think that women still struggle with this. So to explore that and to have these two stories mirror one another, that was an important thing for me to tell,
Yeah, absolutely. I relate to that. I think I know my name is unpronounceable by American standards. But when I think about, publishing under a pen name and all these things, it bothers me. I'm like, don't take my name away from me. You know, it is what it is, but it's mine. And yeah, I can really relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, you're an 8th grade teacher. You spend a lot of time around teenagers. And then at night and on weekends, you write for teenagers. So I'm curious to know, how does that influence you? How does that play into your life? How much, are your students just basically your study subjects?
Sometimes they are. And actually, I can remember very specifically writing a scene, and I might have been revising a scene, and I was sitting during study hall, and I had this is not this year, but the year before, my homeroom, and I needed something where not the main character, where Finn could possibly get kicked off of a baseball team. And I had 3 baseball players sitting in front of me, and I'm like, guys, I need to talk to you. You need to tell me something that you would do that would get your coach to kick you off the team. Their answer was drugs. And I'm like, no, it can't be drugs. That's a totally different story. We're not going down that path. So I will ask them questions, especially if it's something I need clarification on. Yeah.
So they know obviously they know you're writing, but they as you writing a story, you will they know that you're working on something as you do it, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's important to me to write along with my students. So if they're doing a writing project, I am writing with them, and it might be creative, or it might be an essay. I think it's important that they see that I'm not asking them to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So.
Oh, that's really great. I like that. And then you get to move forward on your novel and you're during the day job, right? little side perk. And then I wanted to talk about the setting, because Cape Cod, it is such a beautiful and very special setting. And I think it's on the cover, and it's literally on every single page of this book, right? And as you know, setting is also very important in my own novel. And I just really wanted to hear, I've never been to Cape Cod, and I'm reading this thinking, I must go there now. I must go there now. So yeah, and tell me about Cape Cod. What does it mean to you, and how you brought it to life?
I've always vacationed on Cape Cod since I was a little girl. My family has a house on Cape Cod, so it does very much feel like a second home to me. New Jersey is clearly where I am right now, but Cape Cod, I guess that's the place where I'd rather be.
That's fair.
And it's the kind of place, it's such an interesting place, because I feel like I wrote about the things that I love the most about Cape Cod in this book, and also in my second book as well. But it's the history, it's the nature. Some of really the most breathtaking places on this planet are on Cape Cod. The whales, obviously, there are a lot of whales around Cape Cod, and it has a very long history of whaling. And it's just interesting to kind of see how that relationship with whales has evolved from killing them for profit, and now conserving them, making sure that we're stewards of them. So
yeah. I know whales are very, very special and important to you as well, and I know they get a lot of airtime in the story.
Some of them aren't as fortunate as others, but
yeah, it happens. You need conflict, right, in the story.
You do.
Tell me about your research process. Obviously, you know Cape Cod very well, but I'm curious about what aspects did you have to research more thoroughly than others?
Yeah, I started, and this is with anything that I'm writing, I try to do an outline of what I'm writing first, so that I kind of have an idea of what scenes need to be researched, what kinds of things do I need to know more about in order for this story to make sense. Once I start drafting, I will start doing some superficial research, I guess I would call it. I'd go on the internet and see, one of the things that I searched for on the internet was rules for American, and I guess I didn't even know what the term was for the 1860s. It's Victorian, but is it Victorian? Because that's England. I didn't know, I wasn't sure how to Google it. So I was trying to figure out what the rules for an 1860s American ball were, because that there are definitely rules for things like that. And I had some answers, but not enough. So then I started to like pick through them, like which ones were most pertinent, which ones could I kind of gloss over. That was a pretty easy scene. I researched lighthouses and lighthouse keepers. I climbed Highland Light, which is in Truro, Massachusetts, and Nauset Light, which is in Eastham, Massachusetts. I went to an actual whaling captain's house that is a museum now, the Captain Bangs Hallett House in Yarmouthport. And that was really interesting. So they take you through like every room, and in each room are all of these artifacts from the different places that he visited. And, you know, whaling trips could last for years at a time. So he was away so often and for so long that he collected an awful lot of things. And it was just really interesting. All these little things that you can add to make something feel a little more relevant to your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious how you structured you obviously have the dual timeline in your story. I wonder if you had any tricks that you used to structure that.
Not many. I thought in my head, I always think if I'm doing not just dual timelines, because I'm not sure I've ever done dual timelines other than this story, but even with 2 points of view, whether they're modern day or not, I always think to myself, I should outline each point of view by itself. And then I never do that. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I feel like I try to outline it as a whole story first, and then try to see how the different perspectives of each character or each time period come into play with that.
Cool. Yeah, you're right. It's like dual timeline and dual POV at the same time.
Yeah, it's like both of them.
And let's talk about favorite and least favorite romance tropes, because you and I had this conversation where you were like, I don't like love triangles, and I said, well, girl, you have two. You packed in two in this story, so you gotta love them a little bit.
And then you said, and I agree with you, that I like it when a love triangle is done well. So like I was just watching, I don't know if you were watching on Netflix, were you watching Shadow and Bone by any chance? Have you seen it yet?
I started. I don't do well with fantasy. Like I started, everyone was talking about it, and I think I stopped. Sorry, it's not for me.
I agree. But I thought that was a love triangle that was done well, because it was very tense, you know? So I guess, and I'm not trying to say that I necessarily do love triangles best, but I liked the way those stories kind of lent themselves, because both girls in the stories have an issue where they want a person to be something that they can't be. And then they kind of make rash, what's the word I'm looking for? Like judgments, I suppose, when they should take the time to get to know someone. So yeah, I thought that was important about figuring out who is actually worth your time. You know, I think that's an important young adult topic.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly like you said, that I think being young and being passionate, the girls are like very quick to be like, oh, this guy is for me because of this, or not for me because of that. And then the reality is way more in the middle, right? Like Absolutely. None of them are perfect, and you fall in love with people for different reasons, whether they right for you or not, I guess.
Exactly.
So I thought I thought it was very interesting the way you explored that theme in both the POVs, for sure. Well, we haven't talked about Arrow yet, which is
we haven't even heard Arrow yet.
Yeah, we haven't heard Arrow. Where are you, Arrow? Are you even here? Like,
he went downstairs. Do you want to know why? Because prior to this beginning, we were on, and he was chewing his bone really loudly. So I hid them so that we didn't hear them. So now he's just annoyed and he left. He's down. For those of you who don't know, Arrow is my German Shepherd.
I was really hoping Arrow would join this Zoom, because I find that when pets come to those events, then it's just so much more fun. So Arrow, we still have a few minutes to go. If you want to come back, we'll welcome you. We'll be happy to see you.
Arrow, come here. Let's see. He's coming. He might take some time.
Okay.
Come on.
We'll wait for him. So, but if not during your events, how does Arrow contribute to your writing process?
Oh my, he does not contribute to the writing process. Come sit.
Come, Arrow.
Sit. He's laying down. He's not going to join us. I'm sorry. But he is right here. He's right here.
We believe you. I've seen photographic evidence of this book.
No, he doesn't help at all. Like he isn't into writing. He doesn't like sitting around. Someone says to bring Arrow to school visits. That would be insane.
The kids would love it.
They would love it, but no, he is. He likes to be outside. He likes to bark at delivery people and other dogs. I don't know, but I've never written a book without him, so I guess I don't want to know.
Well, I find that again, because writing is such a solitary adventure, I just feel like it's company as well. And I also think I do a lot of my good thinking while I'm just walking around, and Arrow gives you plenty of opportunities to walk around the neighborhood. So we'll give him some credit. I'm sure he's helped you brainstorm in his own way.
He is. Actually, I was just thinking, I had written a book, the book I actually signed with my agent, where the character, she had a black wolf. And so I knew that I wanted a German Shepherd, but I had no idea that they came in black. And when I saw that they did, I'm like, well, that's it. That has to be my dog.
And all jokes aside, tell us a little bit more about your writing process. How do you put words on the page?
Yeah, if it's a day that I'm not because if I'm teaching, I have very little time clearly to sit down and to write. So if it is a day that I am off, like a weekend or over the summer, I have to get things done, like laundry or an errand that I have to run. That has to be over with in the morning so that I know that the rest of the day is for writing. I don't know. How is your writing process?
Mine is a non-process. I feel it's just chaos. It's just constant chaos that reinvents itself every day. I am not a morning person, as you know. Every time we meet for writing sprints, I'm like, can we do it later? Even later than that. And I might not be fully awake. I'll be on Zoom, but I might not be fully awake yet. My writing process is a lot of procrastinate now and panic later. It's very healthy. It's not dramatic at all. So all jokes aside, it takes me a really long time throughout the day to I'm like a very old car, you know what I mean? I need to warm me up. I have to warm up. And then often at 10 p.m. I'm at my peak, and I just go for it. And then my fingers don't move fast enough. But yeah, it's a lot of bursts for me. I just suddenly it just kind of hits me, and then it just flows. And but that sadly, it takes hours of warming up for that to happen. Obviously for the last year, I've been writing from home, which has been fairly productive. Again, I've been on deadline for a lot of that time, so the panic helps me get things done.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. I would absolutely agree with you that if I have a deadline, that's inspiring.
Yeah, it's people talk about writer's block. I'm like, well, you either have a deadline or you don't have a deadline. This is your answer to writer's block for sure. And speaking of writing some more, I think you have another book coming out next year. Tell us about that.
So The Edge of Summer comes out with Little Brown next year. It also takes place on Cape Cod, but it's 100% contemporary. And it's about a high schooler named Coriander Cabot, and she is doing a marine biology internship after the unexpected death of her best friend. Her best friend drowned the year before. And she gets to Cape Cod, and she is faced with her grief, with a cute lifeguard, and with disentangling a humpback whale. So that is coming out next summer.
So more whales and more Cape Cod. So if we
more
can't get
whales
enough,
and more Cape Cod, in case there wasn't enough already. Yes.
Well, there can always be more. More beachy, salty, sunny vibes, and more cute guys, for sure. We'll take them. I see there's a lot of questions.
Right on time, Chrissy.
I've just been enjoying watching this like everyone else, so I'm like, oh no, we have to do the Q&A. We do have a lot of questions. Our first one is from Donna. Hi, Donna.
Hey, Donna.
Um,
Donna's my business partner.
This one is for Erica. What character is most like you in this story and why?
I guess I'd have to say Leta is most like me, because sometimes Leta says something or talks too much and then she's like, oops, shouldn't have said that. Like, oops, put my foot in my mouth. I would say Leta.
Okay. And then we have a question from Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Catherine.
And this is for both. Congrats, ladies. What drew you into writing for the YA audience? And we'll have Erica go first on that one.
I guess just because kind of what Anso and I were talking about before, I teach teenagers, and I think that there is something really interesting about that time period of our I don't know about anyone else. That time period of our lives when you're expected to make these adult decisions and to have these adult feelings, but you're still so much a kid. And I think that there's a lot of stories in that time period that need to be told. That's important to me.
For sure. I agree with that. The way I came to YA was a little bit unusual, I guess, in the sense that I connected with an editor. So Kisses and Croissants is my first novel in English in the US, but I have published a lot of nonfiction and fiction in French for young adults. And it was over a decade ago now, I connected with an editor who was looking for someone to write a guide to fashion for teenage girls. And I was really into fashion, and we had a mutual connection. So she reached out to me, and I wrote this book. And as soon as I finished, I said I wanted to do more books with her, and we ended up doing, not just with this editor, with its publisher, about 17 books together, a combination of fiction and nonfiction. And exactly like Erica said, it's just such a rich period of life, and there's just so much to say and so much to explore that I just never got tired of it, I guess.
Okay, this one is for Erica from Donna again. Do you see yourself writing a spin-off book from this one with any of the characters?
No, I don't. I think this is it. This is where their stories end for me. Sorry.
All right. See, this one is from Catherine for both authors, and Sophie, I'll have you go first. How have your debut experiences differed from expectation? Were there any surprises?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think I have been told over and over by author friends to have no expectations. Yeah. Especially, I think being in a pandemic, and especially towards the end of a pandemic, right, where everyone is so over the whole thing. I don't know that there've been any surprises. I think for me, one thing that's definitely been a huge positive is, the ability to do this. I know we wouldn't be doing this event. I'm in New York, Erica is in New Jersey. We're not very far from each other, but I don't think we would have done an event together if this had been, if it hadn't been so normal at this point to do virtual events. So I think it's been really, really fun to just, I've done a lot of events over the last few days or since my debut in everywhere in the US. So I was in Montreal on Sunday, and it's been kind of fun to be able to do that and to not have to worry at all about travel or anything like that. So
that's been a benefit of the virtual events. It's brought authors together who might not ordinarily have a chance to work together, and then it brings them to a whole new audience who may or may not have been able to travel to see them.
Yeah.
Okay, and Erica.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Anso has said. And I think probably my biggest surprise is, I guess, how close that I've become with some of our fellow debuts. Like, I think that we have such a really great group we're the sprinters. We like to sprint in the afternoon. And it's just it's been really great, I guess. And I don't know how close we would have become had we not been in a pandemic with all of this virtual at our fingertips. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
All right, and a question for Erica from Donna. What were your favorite scenes or scene to write in this book?
Geez, Donna's pulling out the big guns.
She's
I want to know as well.
My favorite scene, I really liked, speaking of the scene that I researched, the ballroom scene with Leta in 1862, because she goes in. I don't want to do too many spoilers, but she goes into that ballroom trying to hide the fact that she has this crush on Benjamin Churchill, because she's just not sure if she should, and she ends up hurting her best friend Elijah, which was not her intention. And there was just a lot. There was a lot going on in that scene. There was a lot of banter, and there was a lot of expectations that were created and broken that I really enjoyed writing.
okay. And along those same lines, who was your favorite character in the story and why?
I can't pick a favorite. I do like them all for multiple reasons. But someone had asked me, and this is kind of like sidestepping the question. One of my favorite characters to write was Melly, which was Michaela's little sister. Like, she's kind of spunky and funny. I really enjoyed writing her. But yeah, I can't pick a favorite. I don't know.
It's hard.
Finn's pretty
kind
cute.
of like children, huh?
Yeah, right.
And here's a question from Joe McGee, disguised as Jess Rinker. Hello to you both. For Erica, what have you learned from writing this book, and what's next? And also, congrats.
Thank you, Joe/Jess. Geez, I mean, I've learned a lot, and then you ask the question, it's like, I have learned nothing. I don't know. I guess I feel like a lot of what I've learned has to do with revision. So much of my story really found itself in the revision process. And so I think I've let go of the fear of the perfect first draft, if that makes sense. Like, I don't mind writing a messy first draft. I don't mind speeding through a first draft just to get the words on the page, because I know that I can go back and I can fix it. What was the second? What's next? The Edge of Summer is next. And then who knows? There are some things in the works, so we'll just have to find out.
All right, this next one is for Anne-Sophie from our question champion, Donna. How did you get into writing for young adults, and how did the idea for your new book, Kisses and Croissants, come to you? She loves the title also.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I think I touched on this a little bit before, that how I got to writing for young adult. It was kind of just a chance encounter with an editor who was looking for someone who was passionate about fashion and wanted to write about it for teenage girls. And sorry, what was the second question? I just completely blanked for a second. What was the second?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry. Oh my gosh, I deleted it.
I know. It was about kisses. Or was it about the story behind kisses? I'm sorry.
Yes, that was it.
Yes. So Kisses and Croissants, it's about an American ballerina who moves to Paris for a summer intensive dance program. She's there to focus on ballet and ballet only, and she is hoping to snag an audition with the American Ballet Theatre while she's there. Because this program is very international and very exclusive. And of course, the second she gets to Paris, she meets a very cute French boy named Louis. And that kind of puts a spanner in the works, because she was there to work, but she's going to to dance, which is work for her. But it's a very romantic city, obviously, Paris. And the other thing that comes into play is that there's a legend in Mia's family that Mia's great-great-great-great-grandmother was painted by Edgar Degas and was a famous ballerina who features in one of his paintings. And so Louis gets very excited about this story and offers to help Mia find the famous painting. And that's all I'll say. Yes, I have been falling in love with croissants every day of this pandemic. It has not worked out so well for me. So I'm just reading. So I'm reading for anyone who doesn't see. I just read the comment about falling in love with croissants. I relate. I relate.
Oh my gosh, and I'm sorry about that. That's what I get. I'm trying to keep the questions clean, and I was kind of deleting.
No, I'm
as I
sorry.
went,
It's just
and
me.
that's
I'm
what
just.
Okay, this question is for Erica from Yvette. Erica, how did you come up with this wonderful title, and was it always the title?
This was always the title. Because like with Edge of Summer, I think we went through 3 titles before we ended up with the Edge of Summer. But with Words Composed of Sea and Sky, that was always the title. And I don't remember how I came up with. I was thinking about that on the ride home. I have no idea how I came up with that. Like, other than like, there are certain words that I like, and like sea and sky, they go together. They're short. They're next to each other when you look at them, like, and then, it was a story about poetry. So both of their poems were influenced by Cape Cod, where there's an awful lot of ocean. So
It is a great title.
thank you. Thank you.
Titles are hard. I had a back and forth all day today with my editor about the title for my next book, and we cannot crack it. I mean, we'll see. I mean, eventually we will, but for now.
I started writing lists of like things that were in, like for Edge of Summer, like things that were in the book, like things that like, what can I combine with this? Lists were my friend with that, so.
For sure.
Okay, this next question is for Anne-Sophie from Donna. Do you have a special habit or place that especially inspires your stories?
That's a great question. A habit that inspires my stories. Not specifically. I mean, as I sort of alluded to earlier, I need food. I need specifically, I need pastries and I need sweet food. Nothing gets written otherwise. And not specifically. I think Kisses is obviously based, it's set in Paris, which is a very special place to me, a city that I love a lot. No, I think I'll say I'm a big city person. Like, I grew up really in the country, like in the dead of the country, but as an adult, I've only lived in really, really big cities, and it's just really where I feel home in general, like different cities, but the hustle and bustle feels home to me. So I think I'm usually drawn to writing stories set in big cities. But otherwise, I don't know, not specifically.
Okay. And this question is for Erica from Casey. Which point of view was more of a challenge to write, and why?
I feel like the contemporary Michaela's point of view was more of a challenge to write. I don't know why. I very much love historical. Like, historical is definitely one of my favorite things. Reading it, writing it. And yeah, I think that when we were talking about all those feminist undertones about like how they were both facing them in their different time periods, it was easier to make it a struggle for Leta in 1862 than it really was for Michaela in present day. So it was a matter of trying to figure out, like, in what way can she feel like her words or her voice has been stolen. And that was tough. That took a lot of brainstorming. So.
And Alyssa for Erica. Can you speak about the process of writing the beautiful poems in your book?
Yes, I was terrified to write the poems in this book. They were the very last thing that I wrote. I wrote the story first. And I'm waiting for the dog to bark, so that's why I just flinched. I had actually written the story and sold the story without the poems. And so I knew that I had to write them. And at the same time, I was starting my first semester at Vermont College of Fine Arts, and my advisor was Liz Garten Scanlon, and she is just a phenomenal human being. And you're not supposed, when you're writing down who you'd like for an advisor, you write a list, and you're not supposed to leave any hints about who you wanted. And I was kind of a rebel, and I was like, I have poetry to write. And I very luckily got Liz. And she really helped me through writing these poems. And I tried to keep Michaela's poems a little more modern sounding and Leta's poems sounding a little more 19th century. So there was a lot of reading of Whitman, and there was a lot of reading of Emily Dickinson. And I learned a lot actually about the parts of poetry that you ignore when you're reading it, like meter and syntax and all of these things. So it was a process. I am happy with how they turned out, because I really had never written poetry prior to this. This was really my first foray into it. So
that's impressive.
And this is for both authors, from Nicole and Anne-Sophie. We'll have you go first. Do you have a type of project you want to tackle in the future, whether it's craft, style, topic, voice, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually working on 2 adult projects right now. I don't think I can say much about either, but one is, well, I guess I can say this at least. One is a rom-com, so kind of in the vibe of Kisses and Croissants. It's also set in France, though not in Paris. And I've been working on a suspense novel as well, which it's kind of funny because my writing comes across as like very bubbly and bright and happy, but I love thrillers. I love like bad girls doing really messed up shit, and that's both sides of me. And I know you wouldn't be able to tell that if you read my book. But anyway, so I'm working on a suspense novel that is a bit messed up, and my agent's kind of like, oh, these people are really bad and do really, and there's nothing we're doing then so far. And I'm like, and so that's me.
We wouldn't be able to tell with that pink cover.
No, exactly. No. There is a dark side. There is a dark side. What about you, Erica?
Yeah. My turn now. Actually, so now it's a good segue, because I think I would very much like to write a novel in verse now. I'd like to give that a try. I'd like to try, speaking of like dark things, I'd love to write like kind of a gothic fantasy. I love reading them, and I really think that I'd like to give it a go. Yeah.
Looks like we have our last question here. Thank you, everyone watching, for submitting such wonderful questions.
They were really good questions.
Oh my goodness.
Great questions. Yeah.
This last one is from Catherine. This is for Erica. Erica, do you think you'll continue writing poetry? Did the poems change the story in any way? Do you think novels and poetry feed each other ideas? So the first,
Catherine,
do you think you'll continue to write poetry?
Actually, I have continued to write poetry. I find it very cathartic to write poetry. One thing that we do at Vermont College of Fine Arts is Poetry Fridays. So someone will put a topic in an email chain, and you can write a poem for it. I don't do it every Friday, but if there's a topic that kind of speaks to me, I will just stop my writing and just kind of jot it down in my journal. So yeah, I have definitely taken up poetry writing. Like I said, I really would like to do a novel in verse. Yeah, Poetry Fridays are super cool. What was the next part of this question?
Did poems change the story in any way?
No, not really. I found them pretty easy. I knew the different points of the story that I wanted them inserted, and I put that actually in my draft, like insert poem here. So I would know like thematically what they were going to be about or what they needed to be about. And specifically, Michaela needed like what I'll call like the climactic poem, right? The poem that really mattered in the story. And that one just kind of came to me. That one just, I wrote it in about a half an hour on my lunch break at work.
Oh, wow. And the last part of that question was, do you think novels and poetry feed each other ideas?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I think any way that you're capable of expressing yourself is a way to keep ideas flowing, you know?
I'm curious to know, I know there might be one more question, but I'm curious to know, so you're doing an MFA right now? Or are you finished or are you still?
No, I'm going into my 3rd semester.
I'd love to know, like how, I mean, obviously you already published and you've already been writing for some time and have completed several novels. So I'd love to know your feelings on the before and after. Like, how is it informing your writing now?
It's, you know what it does is that it helps you to stretch your comfort zone. So I've written picture books while I was there, which is not something that I typically write. I've come up with some middle grade ideas. The poetry, obviously, that was completely out of my wheelhouse. I am also finding, especially with the critical writing that's required in my program, that it helps me to look at the things that I read and write in a different way. Like, I just feel like I'm capable, and that has not only helped my writing, but that has also helped my teaching. How I teach books to children, how I teach writing to children. So it has definitely been eye-opening. Yeah.
Great.
We did have one more question come in from Laura. Happy book birthday. What do your students think of your book?
I don't know. This has been such a strange year. I was just saying this to my friends. It's been a strange year. So many of us were virtual for most of the year, and it has been difficult getting to know this group of students. So there are definitely a handful of them that know that I have a book that's out or coming out. And I don't know what they think of it yet. But last year was my group of students where we talked about it all the time. So I don't know. They're at the high school now, so they're gone.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining us tonight. This was just such a wonderful event. What wonderful conversation. And thank you, everyone who participated with your questions, especially Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
I love Donna. It was so nice to meet. Well, I got to meet Erica in person. Hopefully, I'll get to meet Anne-Sophie someday in person as well.
I'd love that.
Well, good luck with both of your books and your upcoming works, and I hope that we can do something together again when they come out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, everyone, and congratulations to Erica one more time.
Thank
you. It's out today.
Yes, and we do have signed copies at the Doylestown Bookshop. If you would like to buy the book, click the button on your screen that says buy the books. We also have copies of Anne-Sophia's book, and she'll send us signed book plates if you would like a signed copy. Thank you again for joining us. Everyone, thank you for watching and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.